Good morning. Happy Monday, LinkedIn family, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to another episode of Let's Build Profoundly, where we're introducing our profoundly certified pros. And today we have Jean Christofferson. How you doing, Jean?
Very good. Happy to be here.
We are happy to have you. You are a recent addition to the team, and we're so excited to have you. You've been giving some great feedback and really diving in to try and build out something great here. So we appreciate that. And where we start with everybody is, what is your HubSpot expertise, and how did you get it?
Okay. So I've mainly focused, sales, reporting, marketing, service. I haven't actually done operations yet, and I really want to. So that'll be next. But to get to how I got there, I'm a software engineer, C++ on Unix. I did a venture-backed startup in Menlo Park, was my first company, and we delivered, but things didn't go exactly as, that often happens. And so this was the first internet gold rush, I refer to it, the time period next, where I had a team of engineers and we didn't have sort of anything to build anymore. And so we built gold-plated custom shovels for all the miners headed towards the gold. And we got
Wow.
paid really well, and it was really fun. But then sort of the bubble burst on that, and we had, and at this point in time, it was basically myself. The other people on the team said, okay, I'm going. One guy went to Hong Kong. Everybody was scattered, and I was left holding, because it was my company, all these sort of assets. And so I took them and bootstrapped another startup with the components. And instead of doing big ticket items, did a SaaS company with free trial, $10, $30, $50. And this was an email marketing, email campaign, custom web forms, online database, which some people use kind of like a mini CRM, custom views. And, there was a way to relate one database to another, but totally, custom, C++ code. We won benchmarks because it's fast. It was a lot of fun. And it truly at that time was, if you build it, they will come. They came. There was no other choice. And so SaaS is addictive. My servers are up and running. My team is working. Great. And the money's poured in. It was fun. And so that was a wonderful period of time until the recession hit. It hit my company in 2010. Almost all of our customers were small businesses, and they hung on as long as they could, and then they shut down. So, made it kind of through that period of time, but hurt. 2/3 of my business was lost. It was bad. So I was like, I'm an engineer. I do run a company. I'd hired all these marketing people, and, we didn't have salespeople, but marketing. And I felt like I was throwing money down the drain at various times. So I started, how do I do this? And I did a whole bunch of marketing certifications. And while I can identify and tell you what works, good copy, good landing pages, you know, I can tell a good color font from a bad one. I can't create those things. That's not me. I'm not a marketer, really. I got sucked in straight into CRMs. And so that's where the money is. There's another one out there at that time period that was in my backyard in San Francisco. And so I ended up, they could pay, clients. And so I started doing that. And I did some HubSpot probably around 2015 and 16. Again, it was more marketing at that time. And it was just nice. And I was also in the time period of, I'd always built my stuff. I needed something, I built it. It might be just a little script or something. But so it was like, I don't have to build this. This is here and this is nice. And it took a little while. I'd say basically when the pandemic hit, before I'm like, okay, I'm going to be full-time into HubSpot now. And I'm not taking other clients unless they're HubSpot. And, So I've just loved it since then. And I'm not an agency. I do have actually my son works for me, but I'm not out there running a lot. So I tend to get, I'll have a bunch of little clients going on and then usually one big one. And so I did an audit 2 years ago for enterprise client. And, so this starts as a one-off. I'm doing an audit. I'm getting paid for doing the audit. It's very in-depth, and identifies everything, and it's not just a piece of paper. There's dashboards built and reporting, and it illustrates all their problems so they can touch them and see them. And that led to, and then ends with a strategic roadmap. So 2 years later, everything is built and all the people are trained. And so, it's a success. They're fully using HubSpot as they should in all kinds of different areas, not just, sales. They have, over 20 sales locations and over 100 sales reps. And so that's a challenge, but it was a fun one. I really,
Sounds like
really
a
like that.
challenge you enjoy, though.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and I'd imagine, I mean, you could speak to this, that your product, development background, your company development background puts you in a great position to build that roadmap, like after the audit. Yeah. Like share a little bit about how that experience kind of translates to that for customers.
Well, a lot of it is that I don't just like maybe go on the surface and say, like, for example, your data is not clean. You've got duplicates. I can't trust the reports. I have to know why, and so then you could go down and say, oh, well, this integration is bringing in bad data. I'm sort of more describing maybe the process, it's like, I can't really separate it out. It's how my brain works. I have to dig deep and full. But then there's also the ability to back up and say, okay, now that we have all this base and we know what's down in the messy basement and we've got to clean up the messy base, building a structure to say, okay, we're just taking this component of the basement out and fixing it. And the rest will stay a mess there, but that's okay. We're going to do that next. So structuring a path out of your problem. And also, one of the things, so this wasn't, when I was building my company, I had one person on my team who kept going, well, our competitor X is doing this and our competitor Y is doing that. And at a certain point I said, you can't look at that anymore. We are doing this. This is what we're doing. With a client, it's the CEO and the leadership teams. They'll be like, oh, I got a shiny new thing. You should be doing this. And it's like, okay, that's great. I'll usually do a little research report on it. We'll put that on the list, and it's like, they're the client, but I'm, and at a certain point they can veto me always, but I can strongly encourage them to stick with the plan. We have to finish what we're doing here.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of speaks to the other question I was going to ask, is that, like, with all that experience in these other systems, it's often hard for people to understand why even admin roles are so different in HubSpot. How do you help, like, from the perspective of, really, for me, it's often a conversation around, like, well, do you really need to customize everything? Probably not. This is why the guardrails are good. This is why it's okay to name things differently. How do you help, clients or maybe others on your team, it sounds like, saying, like, okay, we don't even need to do that right now.
Yeah, yeah. That can be a challenge because this is a passion and you want them to be passionate about it. And so that's why develop a little write-up about it, about the pros and cons and the effort involved, so that you're acknowledging that. Sometimes they say, oh, I didn't think it would be such amount of work. And so then they're happy to defer it. In other cases, maybe if it solves a strategic need for the business, maybe the priority levels needs to be moved up and you do need to address it right away. So, it's being flexible. And that's why way back, well, back to the custom plated gold shovels, we bid a fixed price bid, a large fixed price bid, but we have ahead of time defined our box. And, so then it was a common refrain is, I'm sorry, that's out of scope. As a consultant, I never say that. You are, usually I'm on retainer, so it's not by hour. And so I'm tracking my hours to make sure I stay within my box. And, if I don't, I don't. That's my business. But, I want to be profitable. And so I'll track my hours for me, but I'm not giving them a timesheet usually. And so if they want something different, that's okay. We could do something different. It just means we won't do what I was doing before.
Yeah. Nah, I think that's some of the double-edged sword of HubSpot too, is like it's so easy to be able to kind of switch gears. It's not like IT projects and things that get updated, once a year. I love that approach because I think it's getting harder and harder to actually scope like time and materials effectively, at least with the HubSpot project, because half the time when we're helping people, update their processes at the
Right.
same time, like how do you set that expectation, or maybe they're just not a fit when they're very focused on like tell me exactly what's going to happen, how many hours, or what advice would you have for others out there who maybe are stuck and want to tell that story, but
Right. It's establishing trust with the client. So I'm always a fractional member of their team. They'll be, and since I'm on a retainer, when we join a Zoom or a Teams call, there's often chit chat as happens in, how was your weekend? What did you do? And so that establishes trust. And since you're not just charging by the hour, they know there's a fixed price. You're that's okay. It's not like, oh, well, she's costing us $150 an hour or whatever, and I can't be talking about what I did on the weekend, So, and so that's one level of trust, of a personal trust. And then the other level of trust is that I'm making them look good. I am training them. I'll be careful not to take credit for it directly. I'm like, so and so, I'll push them to the foreground to the CEO so that, or the leadership, so that they're getting the benefit and the credit. And indeed, what I listed as my superpower is I work myself out of a job. I don't want to stay. This client I do have some other clients I've had for even longer, but that's a kind of a maintenance mode. So this was unusual because they were large and had a lot to do time period, but I want them, they're now fully trained. They know how to do custom reports. They understand their data structure. I'm a little concerned about the data cleanliness. They need to, that'll be, nobody likes to take care of that, but you have to deal with that on a periodic basis because things change and creep in. So, that's, I think, the way so they're not thinking on an hourly, what are you building me basis. They're thinking on, we're all in it together trying to be successful.
yeah, I've started referring to that as managed partnerships instead of managed services, because in that case, I mean, it could be possible for somebody to be a multi-year client and never get into services. There's so much that you could do in HubSpot,
Yeah.
right? Or all the other systems and like training and all this stuff. So as long as we're always like, okay, we've got this maintenance level covered, your team handles that. And now whenever we work together, it's developing and building on top. So I love that. Let's take a step back and if you could share who outside of HubSpot, who is Jean?
Well, I know I'm not the only one, but I'm a master gardener. I have a backyard farm right out the window. Currently have 7 hens. Can't have roosters. Before we put an offer on our house, I checked to make sure what the zoning was. And I can have up to 12 hens and one large farm animal. I keep teasing my husband, I want a goat. And he's like, no. And you can't have one goat. You got to, they have to be in pairs. So at least, and they eat all my vegetables. So I grow about, between 300 to 500 pounds of food a year. And that excludes the eggs. And that may sound like a lot, but it's actually not. Once my fruit trees kick in, I'll up my weight there. As a master gardener, though, so that's not just for me. I'm actually part of the Master Gardener organization. And so I volunteer at a local organic farm every Friday. And so you don't book meetings with me on Friday. I'm at the farm and we grow food for the community. And then I do workshops, like we have one this week on common garden pests.
Okay. +1 for the Profoundly Gardening channel,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think.
I have a spit-off here.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share besides gardening, the green
Well,
thumb?
we like, you know, hiking and camping. And this is what if I wanted to dust off my, computer I'm not gonna say hacking skills because I'm not a hacker. That was part of the interview process to just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. When I hired engineers, scoring a camping site in our favorite campground is a big problem. We have gone to the Tetons since our honeymoon and have our favorite site. I can't tell you because I don't want anybody else to know which one's the best. And we learned this method of getting our favorite site and taught our children this method. And as adults, they implemented this method, which is, arrive early, talk to the people. Everybody has their little paper plate up as to when they're leaving. And then you make a deal and find out when they're leaving. You slip your paper plate under there and then you arrive at 5 a.m. and pay for the site and set up a chair there, just to make sure. And then you wait in a nice distance so you're not interfering or breathing down their neck until they leave. Doesn't work anymore. It's all online. 6 months ahead of time. I will tell it's for me it's 7 a.m. Pacific time is when you can reserve. It's terrible. It's like, I finally scored a site for this summer, but it's not the one, but it'll be just fine. So
Yeah. I've actually had some probably deeper than I'd like conversations with my Aunt Jerry about this very topic,
yes.
as they like traveling all over Texas and the rest of the country. So, but hey, whenever she does find that spot nearby, I get to go enjoy it with her.
Yeah.
So no complaints here. So we've got this event coming up, Profoundly Kickoff. Wow, it's next week already.
Yeah.
I cannot believe it. 8 tracks, HubSpot admin, integration developer, website developer, RevOps, AI, marketer, solopreneur, and founder. When I list those 8 tracks, which one are you looking forward to the most?
So it's a race between RevOps and admin. I have to go see Kyle. It's like a fire hose and there's always something new and exciting. And, it's like, I don't think I've ever watched one of his things without we got to do this. It's something new and exciting. And so, but then RevOps is really where, and then defining, I would actually say I'm not a RevOps master. I've been too much of a jack of all trades. And so I want to learn more but I think like that. And so that's where I need to be also.
Yeah, it's been interesting watching those 2 topics. Definitely number 1 and number 2, in terms of people who have listed that in the form, but also the lack of clarity is. So like, what's the difference? And I think can be challenging. So I'm also looking forward to our What is a HubSpot admin
Right.
panel that's right before that. Since we got a little extra time here, like how do you answer that question? What is a HubSpot admin?
So I answer it. I list on I'm a HubSpot admin and architect. And so architect I'm not just like, I don't, and I never do this. I don't just add users to your account and give them permissions. I help the person who is going to do that set that up, so that they could do that,
Yeah.
And, and then it's like, you don't just create properties because you have a new form and you want to ask a new question. You can't just do that willy nilly. You'll end up, because they did before, almost every client before I got involved. And then you've got properties that were used once 3 years ago, and never used again and not needed, so addressing it, I guess it all comes down to the data again. You want to have clean data and um, make sure you're doing the right thing in HubSpot to keep your data clean, and you're doing the right thing to make sure everybody using the HubSpot with all kinds of different roles, that it is not a chore for them. It's something that they want to come to because it gives them things. And an example too of how, and this, I'm getting a little off field, I created a dashboard that was called Opportunity Dashboard Work. And this was for me. And so the dashboard's locked down to me. And I'm getting all these requests for people because they think these could be sales opportunities for them. And ultimately, there is one for them. It's in their dashboard already. And so that's exposing opportunities that they didn't know about. And that gets into, we did, talk that much into the details of HubSpot, but segmenting data. And they had all these companies, and like nobody wants to get rid of these companies because there could be gold in the companies, even if they've never bought or bought 5 years ago or more. And so we segmented them and actually built workflows that did sequences from, sales reps with, so I'm doing their job for them. And all of a sudden, these cold, dead companies actually generate business. But the ones that didn't, okay, they get colder and deader. They're still not, until finally we're like, okay, we're deleting them.
Yeah. I know how that goes. Always potential if the record exists in the system,
Yeah.
or if
So, I
Zoom
mean,
info says we should add it,
yeah. And so
but we
back to
won't go
what
there.
the question is, that's not an admin role, that's being strategic and building something that the client needs.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, I look forward to talking with you more at some point, because that experience in other systems can be very powerful in helping people understand why adminning HubSpot is so different. But we're gonna wrap there for today.
Yep.
If you're watching this and you want to be a profoundly pro like Jean, head over to profound.ly and click on the Give HubSpot Help button. It is right next to the Get HubSpot Help button, and you can sign up to be a pro. Or also on the homepage, you can find a CTA to our Profoundly kickoff, which is next week, March 6th, Thursday, and register and join us. We've got hundreds of people registered, which is a very exciting thing. Just nothing but educational value at this event. Free to join, free to register. Anybody who registers will get to access all the content that will be recorded after the event. Please head over and register. Jean, thanks so much for sharing your story today.
It's fun.
And until tomorrow morning, see everybody tomorrow. Have a great Monday.
Thank you.